Hi, I'm Matt Reed with Air Racing Products, and today we're doing a video on fire suppression systems and what to check before each season. I've been personally working with fire suppression systems for 16 years now, and one of the biggest overlooked things in motorsports is the fire systems. Either teams show up at the track with an expired bottle, or they haven't been looked at, serviced throughout the off-season, that would make these things incapable of doing what they're supposed to do when they're needed. So what we're going to do is quickly go over some of the areas that you should check before each season. Now, all fire suppression systems are basically the same. It's a cylinder that's pressurized, and when activated, it pushes the suppressant to the pre-designated areas in the car. That being said, there's different size bottles, there are different kinds of activation systems. There's the mechanical systems, there's the electrical systems, and then there's what's called the zero pressure system, which utilizes a CO2 cartridge. So the cylinder itself is not pressurized until it's activated. The first thing we're going to discuss is the actual label itself. This is often overlooked, and teams show up at the track with an expired bottle or one that's going to be needing service relatively soon. So the first thing to check on your preseason checklist is the expiration date. Now, I encourage you, because fire systems are pressurized and in some shipping methods are considered hazardous, the shipping time, it can take several days because it needs to be shipped ground. So keep that in mind when you look at the expiration date based upon the schedule of your race season. A lot of teams oftentimes will buy a bottle only to keep it in the trailer in the event that does occur, or an accidental activation, or an activation that's required. You can simply switch out the bottle at the track. Highly recommended for those guys who can afford to keep an extra system on the trailer. But when you go to inspect the system, once you've looked at the label and realize that you're good for a few months or even possibly the whole season, the first one we're going to check is the mechanical system. The best way to check the mechanical system is the pull cables. All the mechanical systems have two pull cables, one for the cockpit and one for outside the car, in the event the quarter worker needs to activate the system if the driver is not able to do so. So the first thing to check is to make sure that the cable is free and clear. So what you do is disconnect the cable from the bottle itself. There'll be some detailed pictures in this video that will show you how to do that. But once you remove the cables, just make sure that they move freely in and out and that there's no obstructions. The second thing to check is the plumbing itself. Now, most of the fire suppression systems on the market today use what's called a push lock tubing. All that is it's an even tubing that when inserted into the bottle, it locks into place. What I recommend that you do is actually push the collar back, pull the cable out, and reinsert it and make sure it's a tight fit. And you can do that through all the connections throughout the car, at the T's and at the nozzles themselves, to make sure that they're all in place and they're tight and sealed. The next thing to check on an electrical system, which is a little bit more detailed, is the actual nozzles themselves. Again, there'll be some detailed photos in this video that will show you, to make sure that they're clear and free of any debris. Oftentimes these nozzles are located in areas that can pick up debris during the course of the season. It's very easy to clean out. And some of them you can use a Q-tip, the others you can use a paper clip to make sure that those are clear and free of any obstructions. The electrical systems are a little bit more complex to check. First and foremost is in the control box. In most of the systems out there is a 9-volt battery. It's highly recommended you change that 9-volt battery at least once a year and or after each activation of the system. The system does require to see 9 volts to activate the firing head, which then will release the suppressant. To check the electrical system after you replace the 9-volt battery, in the instruction manual, it will show you how to put this into the test mode. And when you put it in the test mode, you flip the switch, push the buttons, and the indicator light will show that your wiring is proper. It's also highly recommended that during this process that you disconnect the cables from the firing head. Again, just make sure that they're clean and free of any obstructions prior to test. The next thing to do is to then go ahead and check the plumbing as well. The same way you would with the handhelds, the hand activated systems. Go through and make sure all your connections are tight and the nozzles are clear and free of any obstructions. The last thing to check, which is very important, is the mounting of the system. All the systems are mounted with some sort of straps to hold it to a base plate. It's recommended that you check to make sure the plates are still secure, there isn't any play. In the event of a shunt or an off-road experience or a crash, the last thing you want is these bottles flying around inside the cockpit. That's kind of the basics of the fire suppression systems. These are all things that you need to check and should check, and if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. If you have a system and you don't have the manual, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to email you a copy that will go through all the instructions on how to check your system. Thank you very much. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.